be functional for years to come. If it's not maintained correctly, I don't think it will be. When you look at one more time we're saying private roads, you can't maintain them. The reality is you plow Martin Farm Road, you plow Upway Farm, you plow Saunders Road, you plow Story Road, Trolley Hill Farm, Roberts Road. These are all private roads. And private roads with nothing like the installation you have on Lamson Ave. You know, I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked that you would not think what the residents of Lamson Ave have done is not in the best interest of this town. And I think, quite frankly, as elected officials, you should be watching out for the town and for the taxpayers. And we are the taxpayers. And we're saying any way we can that we've done everything to help you, and we'd like you to reciprocate. The other, as recently as Thursday, I received a letter from DES where they state that Carl said he is adamant about the decision not to plow, and he suggests that there's been a history of disagreement between the town and the residents of Lamson Avenue. Would lead me to believe that this decision has nothing to do with the RSA. It has nothing to do with anything short of 2 times we've had disagreement regarding Lamson Ave. The first time was probably, I'd say 1994. Public Works went up, they cut down bushes. And I mean, rightfully so. We came down, Bob Wheeler was around back then, we said, why did you cut down the bushes? I mean, why didn't you just tell us you were coming to do it? Public Service wouldn't come by and trim back your bushes without asking you. That was the first one. The second one is the issue we're dealing with now. And I think the residents have given an extraordinary amount of help to the town to make this all possible. And again, all I'd ask is that the town reciprocate with continuing the services that they've provided since 1952.
Cynthia Beaulieu. I'd like to address a couple of the comments that were made that the porous pavement was not integral to the green project in that on page 17 of the packets that I gave you, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. The section of roadway has been under a corridor redesign contract with McFarland Johnson for several years. The town applied for ARRA funds to redesign the drainage system as a green drainage system because of the location of the lake and the severe flooding. So why do we have to do it? If you didn't need to go down Lamson Avenue and you didn't need the green project, you had already had a design done by McFarland Johnson, and we, the taxpayers, paid to have that redesign done. Purpose and need. Due to the location of the roadway at Glen Lake, the town is sensitive to discharging the runoff untreated directly into the lake. Our desire is to create a model system of green drainage to serve as an educational system for our public works staff and decision makers while protecting the resources of the lake. Anticipated Section 5, there's heavy stormwater runoff currently coming down Worley Hill Road directly into a cross-culvert stream. Our intention is to return this stream crossing to a naturally restored channel and redirect the Worley Hill Road runoff through an infiltration system along Lamson Avenue to an existing pond at the end of Lamson Avenue. There was no existing pond because you can't put water directly into a wetlands. So that detention basin is on our property, Barry's and mine. So as well as going down Lamson Avenue, we have given you a detention basin to treat all this water. So in your own application, you say social and economic benefit. The social and economic impacts from the project are expected to be favorable. The abutting property owners to this neighborhood will no longer suffer flood damage several times per year. The the homes on Lamson Avenue have had flood water. Okay, they've all had water in their basement. We sit up a little bit, Mother's Day flood, we had a little bit of water in our basement. But the deal is, as Tom has said, you were given a gift. With regards to the statement that we had to buy a minimum quantity, I do quite a bit of business with Brock's Industries, and that's not true. There is a minimum, but it's not that at the beginning of a project you have to know what a minimum quantity is. The amount of porous pavement that's along the side of South Mast Road really did not make this the green project. What made it the green project? They got the 1.4% interest rate from the federal government, was the porous pavement, the whole subsurface of Lamson Avenue, the pipes, everything. It is one system. When Nick was talking about the overrun for the filter fabric, the first winter, the sub-base was put down in filter fabric and the top coat was put down, and the filter fabric was pulled to the top and torn by town plow trucks. And we called and we said, your plow trucks are ripping the filter fabric. So, yes, we have talked, we were in contact with the Public Works all the time. And the other thing is, I know it's been stated many times that how wonderful for the residents that they have now have a plowed drain. We are very happy with the gravel road. Additionally, the design of this is a crown to the road, so anything right now it does freeze and snow. So what used to be flat and went down naturally now slopes to both sides and drains in. So there's a crown there that wasn't there before, so it does drain to both of our properties, or all the properties. So that is to answer all the technical comments of statements that you had said.
So one other comment. With respects to how it was maintained in the past, the town graded our driveway at Lamson Ave. They graded it once a year. So the town's actually saving money by the fact that they put impervious pavement because they don't need to grade it anymore. They'd always do grade it back and forth one time a year. So, I mean, you're certainly saving money on grading costs. That's something that you did once a year.
Just so that everybody's aware, on page 21 of what you handed us, I just want to read one thing. Finally, it was found that Lamson Road is a private street. The town does maintain the roadway due to its use as an access for Goffstown High School students to the parking lot and athletic fields at Barnard Park. But the roadway is owned by the adjacent homeowners.
Yes, and
I want to point that out to everybody.
Yes.
That does no longer exist.
Yes, it does.
Why do you say it doesn't exist?
Have you been down there in the morning or the evening when the kids are walking through there?
Posted, no trespassing.
Well, it was always private.
And the kids walk up and down. What I suggest you do is come over there in the morning or in the evening and watch
let's
traffic
just
that goes back and forth.
time out here a minute. Time out a minute. Twice in the past, since I've been on this board, residents of Lamson Avenue has been to the Board of Selectmen when the Board of Selectmen said we can no longer plow private roads. They've come in and they said to the Board of Selectmen, the public benefit is that the students go from the high school to Barnard Park. The Board of Selectmen said, okay, fine, we will continue plowing that road because there's a public benefit. That benefit has been extinguished.
So are you telling me that traffic that goes up and down there every day, are we seeing?
It's been extinguished. There are signs that say no trespassing.
I'd like to answer that.
Thank you.
During the construction, the selectmen and the police department, Patrick Sullivan, chief at the time, it was on the town website. While this construction was going on, Lamson Avenue was closed. Lamson Avenue was closed. The residents all had to park at our house during the day of construction because they started at 7 a.m. and they went right through, and it was dug out. They were putting in drainage pipe, drainage manholes, sewer, compacted layers of different types of sub-base, the fabric, everything. The residents could not get in and out during the week. This was during the school year. So I was home one day, and at the end of the school day, and the road was down about 2 feet, there was a steady stream of kids walking through our side yard, parallel to Lamson Avenue. There was the big machine, the roller that tamps the stuff. There was a backhoe, there was a dump truck, and there was a fourth machine working within Lamson Avenue in the detention basin, and there was a steady stream of kids going through. So I went out and I called the high school and I said, I left a message for the principal and I said, you've got to stop these kids from going through here. They were not kids going back and forth from school. They were, a lot of them were teams. They were going to the track for practice. So Megan was there, Terry Alt, the town engineer. She was there. She was meeting with somebody else, with Steve Ryder, who was the super at the time. I went over there, a policeman came, and then the principal came over, and the policeman, the kids were just going back and forth. And so the principal said to me, he said, you can't tell me that this is more dangerous than those kids crossing South Mast Street. And the policeman looked at him and was like, what are you talking about? And he said, you can't tell, because South Mast Street crosswalk was so dangerous. And, I said, they can't be going through here. This is private property. And we always had a good relationship with the town. And the principal said he never backed us up or backed up the town, the police department, or you, in stopping the kids from going through there. So the policeman, there was a kid coming down there, and the principal went over to talk to him, and the kid just looked at him and kept walking through our side yard, through the detention pond, and out through the path. So the policeman, really, I'm glad he was there. He did a very good job. The next, probably later that week, I was walking my dog down the path before the work started, and a couple of girls came through the path, and the trucks were just starting to get going at the end of the path, and I said, you can't come through here. And they said, well, yes, we can. Principal McBride told us we could. And I said, you cannot come through here. This is a construction zone. And one of them looked at me and they said, well, no, the principal said we could. And that's when the road got closed. We did everything we could to keep it the way it had always been. And whether it's the school or anybody else, that's the deal. And at that point, we called our insurance agent and said, what do we do? And he said, you post it. And once you post it, the liability is whoever's gone through there. As Tommy said, people go through there. But if anything happens, it's their responsibility. Kids still go through there. So for you to say now, hang your hat, nothing has changed. It was always private. It's just that now, as Tommy said, it's a litigious society. We are protecting ourselves. You, the town, should be protecting your investment in the porous pavement. $162,000 of a green project, and you're willing to walk away from it. That's like mine too.
Appreciate your concern for the safety of the high school students during a 1 or 2 week period of heavy construction. That was the right thing to do. The construction's been over for a year now or more. Therefore, is there no longer a need for the sign? No trespassing?
We've actually tried to work with the school department for them to assume responsibility and insurance and everything, and
So the sign stays up?
yes, would you? Do you want me to come? Would
The
you?
construction though,
Okay, your property,
spent a lot of time talking about construction.
right.
Construction's been over for a year, so that's off the table.
If someone gets hurt in that detention basin,
So you've seen the high school students walking through the detention basin.
I've seen them sliding down the side of it, into it. We're talking high school students.
I mean, I tried to.
Nick.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Mr. Mulligan, I just wanted for backup, if everybody has the information that Carl had given us during the roundabout project, there are all of the emails from Mrs. Bovair, starting from November 25th all the way through the beginning of December, explaining exactly what she said back and forth to the school district, to the police department. And I would just say, Selectman Pierce, that I don't know how fair that question is, only because we just hung our hat on the fact that, we really didn't, it wasn't brought to our attention that this was a private road until all of this came about. Well, in their defense, until they actually talked to their lawyer because of the construction issue, they didn't really know that they needed to protect themselves with a no trespassing sign. So once you go down a certain path, it's very difficult to now say, okay, well, construction's over, take the sign down and you accept the liability. I don't think that's from our perspective, a fair request of a resident. People do go through there. I mean, the high school students cut through there.
Scott, did you have a?
No, I mean, a couple of things that have come about in tonight's conversation, which I think sometimes Pandora's box opens up, and that is, the list of roads that were mentioned. I don't feel comfortable saying no on Lamson. I think if that's the case, we must say no on these other roads. And I will say, I mean, it is no secret, I have probably stated on 3 or 4 different occasions, I am not a big fan of picking up the garbage and the recycling and plowing the villa or the churches. I've never been a big fan of that. I have gone along because that's what this board, wishes to do, but I don't think public funds should be spent for private enterprises, regardless of whether it's a perceived public good or not, because then you get into all this gray area. Either it is a public property or it's not a public property. So yeah, we do subsidize the villa, we do subsidize our churches, we do subsidize Lamson Avenue, we do subsidize, I don't know what other streets I heard, Saunders or Story Hill or something else. And it's to the point where it's either a public road or it's not a public road. If it's not a public road, we don't do anything to it. And this is the same thing that we had with, Parsons. Parsons, we asked them to bring it up to code. So for me, the easiest solution is let's make this a public road, bring it up to town specs if it's possible, and then we maintain the services. If it's not, then it's on their dime. And then the same thing with these other roads. If Saunders, I don't even know where Saunders is, but if it's not, there's no good reason for the town to be doing anything on it, then we shouldn't be.
Did I hear you say that maybe the road should be given to the town as a public
I mean,
road?
if it's I don't know. I'm just saying, if it was a public road, would all this go away? Then the students get to walk up and down the road because there's no liability to the property owners. We
The
maintain.
road doesn't go all the way to Barnard.
That's true.
They still have to cross private property.
Correct.
Well, maybe there's a way of dealing with that, and so that kids can walk right through and there's no liability in that respect, and it becomes public, and all this just simply is a moot issue. If it's a public road, then, and I hate to say it, but we're already almost there in the sense of it's already paved. Just a matter of, I guess it's an ownership thing of who owns the darn road. I don't know. I've never served on the planning board, so I don't know all these things about center lines and setbacks and all that other stuff. But to me, if it was a public road, then all this kind of goes away.
Nick, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. Scott, believe it or not, I am in agreement with you in regards to public funds on private property. But in this case, in Lamson Ave, I think the horse has already left the barn. At some point, someone made a decision to follow the engineer's recommendation and invest a huge amount of money on that private road. We know who owns it. The abutters own the road. It's a private road. I have enough doubt, based on all of the things I've read on how to properly care for porous pavement, both in the summer and the winter and the plowing, that I want to protect the town's investment and continue plowing. The suggestions you made are good suggestions. Maybe we should explore those things and see where that leads. But in the short term, I think we need to protect that road and continue maintaining it. And that's my opinion.
Steve, just a question, were there, I mean, I hear all the part that for the town, the road, and I understand what Phil's saying with the pipe going through. Were there any other considerations given along this process that affected you as homeowners on when this road was put in, when this drainage was put in?
When you say consideration.
Considerations, things that would benefit homeowners along the way.
Didn't somebody get like a?
I thought there was a
hookup,
driveway
a
involved.
water hookup or a driveway put in, and
The only reason that there was, the only reason the Corabos got a septic system is you couldn't put a retention pond that close to a septic system.
Okay.
With respects to my house, there was a dirt driveway, and the concern came up being porous pavement. There's only one that's a very narrow driveway. You don't want to be plowing dirt over porous pavement. So they decided the thing to do would be put in, a strip, a strip to the garage. That, again, you could perceive that to be a good for me, but what it was doing was protecting the pavement. We talked about, went back and forth with Carl and Megan. They said, you got a good point. It should be done. All the other driveways are paved, and we wouldn't be threatening the pavement with any dirt in their driveways.
So this was driven by urine and not by the DPW end?
No, this is, see...
No, I mean, I'm trying to get an understanding of this, because I'm just
No,
gonna
go ahead,
make
sorry.
make a small comment if I could, please. I do look at it as that, from a standpoint of ownership being there, that beyond, I mean, obviously, it would always be a rutty dirt road kind of thing, that also now that a good base has been put down, I believe the area is nicer with the driveway and the turnaround. And I look at that from a standpoint of an area that was praying for roads for 40 years, just so you know. And I look at that, it looks good, and I think there's some good considerations there. I understand highly what you're talking about regarding ownership and kids going through. And I understand that liability issue, but also on the same point, I don't think we, as a community, I don't think we can talk out of both sides of our mouth saying, hey, it's private property, but hey, you can go through. There's something wrong with that. In other words, and I would, not the school side, but at least from the town end, I would say then if it's private property, need to respect the private property. And if there's a sign there that says no trespassing, that means no trespassing. And I highly respect that, and I don't think we should be saying to kids, go ahead through it. So I'm trying to look at this piece from a standpoint of being a private road. If there's, obviously implying you're looking for that benefit part to it, and so I automatically now take the kids crossing, going through it. Whatever they're doing at this point, I just call it as illegal once it's posted. So the next part would be is that we're talking about this paved piece, and I look at and I understand there's some hookups, I understand there's some driveways, the driveway was done, and then you have that pass, and I look at it as just a sheer that it's better than before. It is definitely better than before. How that benefits, for everyone is something that I think we're talking about here. But I look at it, I don't think it was, I've heard comments before saying, well, we want the one that had anything done. And when one says, would I rather have my dirt driveway tarred, I gotta look at it and say, it looks like a benefit at that point. But I just wanted to go to that part. That's just what I'm saying, that's all.
That would be in the small picture, a strip of driveway. My car, 3 cars fit in that driveway. So a strip of pavement, quite frankly, I could afford to do it myself. I think Carl and Megan might attest to the fact that when we were going through this process, we asked many times, is there any way to go around this without tarring the road? We sincerely did not want to change from a dirt road. My family's owned houses on that road since '69. I'm very familiar with the area. We liked the way the area was. We were talked in and convinced that this is a thing that would be good for the town. It was the thing we should do, and being longtime residents, we agreed. We did what we meant to do, and quite frankly, when I got the letter, I was in Europe when I got the letter, I said, wait, what's going on here? We just went through this whole project, we did everything the town asked us to do, and suddenly we're stopping paving. And one more time, I sincerely believe stop plowing. The reason you stopped plowing was to do with the path. And I think, Selectman Devanza, I think you were a little bit heated earlier because you've heard from us at Lamson Ave before, twice. This is the second time. I think, considering why the Board of Selectmen heard from us in the past and present, I think they're very good reasons for us to be sitting here chatting. Very, very good reason. Last time, like I said, The chainsaw gang came up and cut down a lot of our bushes. I mean, come on. Anybody would be upset by that. It's our property. And at that stage, we asked Carl why, and he said, I didn't know they did it. That was, if you recall, and when we went back and forth when Bob Wheeler was around, I know you were on the board at the time, the same questions came up. What is it? The kids do get back and forth. But since then, now it's expanded into a public green machine. And we made that possible. Had you had to go down to Mast Road and down, you would not have been able to afford it. That's what Carl Megan said.
Scott?
I'm gonna comment on what you just said. I think we do things, we as human beings, to help other people. We help, I think hopefully you did this for the public good, for the people like the Brad Parkhurst who are perennially flooded and the people around him. And it wasn't just for what I can get out of myself. And I look at all of the residents along Mast Road in Bernardville that were inconvenienced over 2 years will be inconvenienced again next spring as they do a sewer main. It's all for the public good. It's not about, us. One of the things I'm trying to avoid is this, this thing coming up again and again. And I understand, Nick, where you're coming from, but I also think that we need finality to this. Finality, to me, putting this thing to bed, means that this road is a public road. To me, it eliminates all these issues. The trespassing issue, if it's a public road, there is no trespassing. If it's a public road, we are allowed to pick up the trash and plow the roads. We are allowed to, to sand and salt and do all those things to get to just makes it, by the virtue of the fact that it's a private road, that's what keeps on going back and forth from 84, I don't even know, that's what someone said, to 2004, to this. We keep on going back of I get a benefit because it's a private road, but then I want the public services. It's like, make it a darn public road. It seems to me it would eliminate is there any objection from anybody to make it a public road? I don't understand.
I would counter that question needs to be asked to the owners of the private road. Because what we're kind of dancing around is that who will ever enter into any conversation with the town for easements or anything like that when they fear that, maybe that structure the town puts in on our property, they're not going to touch it anymore. In fact, they might even want to take it in the future and make it public. I mean, if you look at the history and you look at what happened on that street, it's a private road. It's always been a private road. Forever. And there was a public good with children crossing, and if you want to say it was extinguished, okay, maybe it was extinguished, but I would argue that it's been replaced. It's been replaced by the placement of town infrastructure, and that's our responsibility. So it would make things a lot easier if it was a public road, but it's not. And I don't think we can wave a magic wand and say, okay, now it is a public road. They may not want it to be a public road.
Okay. Cynthia?
In the drainage report, it said you'll either have to get easements or make it a public road. That's in the original drainage report. The town never asked for the land. They never asked to make it a public road. So it's a great discussion now, but from the get-go, the Public Works Department was asking for easements. This was the town of Goffstown's project. We didn't go after anything. You may have thinking, oh, it looks much better. We loved our neighborhood. We still love our neighborhood. And you must be able to tell how closely knit we are. We are in this together. And the other thing is, the town, your attorney wrote all these easements. And it states the right to construct, repair, and maintain surface porous pavement. I mean, in this packet I gave you all of our easements. They are 4 or 5 distinctly different easements, and again, $162,000. If the town had gone down and used the existing right-of-way down Worthy Hill Road, out to Wallace Road, into South Mast, there was no way for you to have a green project because there was no way to put a detention basin anywhere else that wouldn't impede private property. The point of our property really is the only place where you could put one. and we went back and forth with Carl on it. We moved where it was. We were gonna lose our big stand of trees, we were gonna lose our compost pile, we were gonna be losing a lot of stuff, and we said, no, push it back, because we wanted that integrity of that portion of our yard that we still had. We work with the town, but the deal was, this was Carl's project. And he went after it, and great for the town. What are you, we're one of the only 2 towns in the country to get this type of money for this? And every EPA, DES, everybody I talked to, when I explained the situation, they're amazed that the federal money went for $162,000 on a private road. But it's a great project. That drainage works. And all we're asking for you to follow through on what your project is. Follow through on it.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that based on the desire to protect our infrastructure on Lamson Ave, that the board vote to reconsider its earlier motion to discontinue plowing on Lamson Ave.
Is there a second? Hearing no second, I'd say that the motion dies for lack of a second. Any other discussion on this at this point?
I do. I think the message that I'm taking out of all this is that I think we owe it, in terms of equity and fairness, is some of these roads that were rattled off tonight. Saunders, or I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. We can check the minutes.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. About every
don't-
10 years, we need to do that. It'll be the 3rd time now that we've been doing this. I think Sue has a list. She has goes back from about 19.
I don't know. I guess I'm stuck on this whole public benefit things. I just think it opens up a can of worms to which I don't think we need to entertain. I mean, either it's a public road or it's not.
Okay. Well, Sue, you do have a
Because
file.
that's where I have a hard time with
Okay,
this.
let's leave it at this then. You do have a file on those issues. Why don't you revisit that? Some lists of names came up, and there's a history on some of those that she'll have to dig through, get some of that in that, and we'll take it from there. We'll get a report from her. Yeah.
I'm just going to say that I am disappointed that the board would choose not to protect its infrastructure, particularly when next week we're going to be asking residents to spend another $1 million on roads. That may include another. I mean, are we going to do another project like this? $162,000, $100,000. I mean, it's a big investment to just turn our back on and just say, well, and who's responsible if they damage the road?
Nick, does that $162,000 you're talking about also include the 30-inch pipe that's on the Lamson?
I'm sure it does. Yes.
Does it also include
The
making
detention
of the
pond.
drain at detention? So
Yes.
let's
The
let's-
60,000
yeah,
that I
but
mentioned
let's be-
earlier was just the pervious
let's-
pavement and the road.
Let's be fair, okay? Let's not say that, give the impression that porous pavement on Lamson Ave cost $160,000. The drainage project included digging up a road, laying a 30-inch pipe. How many feet?
Mr. Chairman, you're absolutely correct. I quoted the $60,000 that the pervious pavement road cost. I believe it was the resident who stated the entire amount spent on the road, and that you're correct. It does include the detention basin, but it's a system.
Right.
And I don't want to
When you
jeopardize the system.
rattle off those numbers before, you were also talking about clearing down in the detention pond.
Not the 60. 60 is just the road
What you wrote, okay, let's.
Just the
let's
road,
not get into
pervious
that-
pavement
That argument,
and the road base.
okay, but I just wanted to get that point out, okay? That represented, the porous pavement represents a smaller amount than that total project.